Good morning. How are we all? Good, because I'm nervous. Cool. Just wait for the kids to... All right. Quite often, by often I probably mean all the time, God speaks to me in song lyrics. If you spend any time praying with me, you'll hear me say, I'm just thinking of this song. But all sorts of songs, all sorts of genres. A couple of weeks ago, I was watching a clip on YouTube of a drummer called Liberty DeVito. Liberty DeVito was Billy Joel's drummer. And he was playing through Don't Go Changing. I won't bore you with a whole heap of drum talk, but it's very minimal, a drum part that doesn't really change throughout the whole song. And I didn't think much of it. And that was Saturday night. Sunday morning, come to church, practicing for worship. And as we were playing, this drum beat started coming out, this one that I was watching on YouTube. And I didn't think much of it. I was just in my head because I watched it. And so I didn't really think much about it. Then during worship, it came out again. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. But again, it's just in my head. But it felt right. It fitted the song. I could feel like God was moving through my playing. And then later that day, this song's still going through my head. I'm at home, I've had lunch, and I'm still in my head playing this drum beat. Like drummers, if you ever see drummers, we never sit still. I'm playing this drum beat, thinking about this song. And then because I'm slow, it's hours later, I'm like, oh, God's talking to me. God's talking to me. So I just read you a couple of verses from this song. Don't go changing to try and please me. You never let me down before. Don't imagine you're too familiar and I don't see you anymore. I would not leave you in times of trouble. We never could have come this far. I took the good times. I'll take the bad times. I'll take you just the way you are. Far out, God. We all know who we are. Hey, we all know. We all know what we're really like in the inside. And God's like, I don't even really care about that. It's like the woman at the well. Man, that story undoes me too. She knows who she is, and even Jesus knows all the sins that she's done and all the blokes she's been with and how many husbands she has, and the one she's living with is not her husband. And yet he still talks to her and uses her as a catalyst for revival in her town. Not far out. You know, I think I was talking to Kay the other day, and I was like, it's like we have, you know, those old handheld mirrors. I haven't seen them around much anymore, but my little sister had one a long time ago. And it's like we look at this mirror, but this mirror is broken and it's cracked, and that's how we see ourselves. We just look at this broken, cracked reflection of ourselves, and that's how we project ourselves to God. God, how can you love me? Can you not see this broken, cracked? And God's like, no, I don't see you like that. And in the bridge, this song, it goes, the last part of the bridge goes, but what will it take till you believe in me the way I believe in you? I'll come back to that later, but man, that would change the world. If we believed in God the way he believed in us, far out. That would really change my world. If I could believe in me the way God believes in me, that'd change my world. So anyway, as I've been mulling over this song the last couple of weeks, I found myself again thinking of the Shulamite bride. No surprising, that's like my favourite part of the Bible. She's also the character in the Bible I identify with the most, the Shulamite bride. So I'm just going to be reading through quite quickly through a bit of scripture in the first few chapters of Song of Songs. It'll be in the Passion Translation, but feel free if you want to read along. So starting at chapter 1, verse 5. Jerusalem maidens, in this twilight darkness, I know I am so unworthy, so in need. The Shepherd King, yet you are so lovely. I feel as dark and dry as the desert tents in the wandering lands. The Shepherd King again, yet you are so lovely, like the fine linen tapestry hanging in the holy place. So in this first chapter we see this back and forwards between the Shulamite bride and the Shepherd King. So really like between us and Jesus really is how I picture that. You see this back and forwards. She's trying to point out how unworthy and how unlovable she is, and he's trying to tell her how beautiful and lovable and worthy she is. Man, I don't know how many times I've had that conversation with God, trying to remind him of how unworthy I am. I don't know why. I'm not worthy, God. Do you not see this sin? Do you not see how often I choose other things over you? I'm really not worthy of this love for me. That's what she's saying, and I really identify with that. In the second chapter, though, things start to change. Verse 1 of chapter 2. I am truly his rose. This is the Shulamite bride again. I'm truly his rose. The very theme of his song. I'm overshadowed by his love, like a lily growing in the valley. So she's starting to understand just how much he loves her and desires to be with her. Then in verse 10, he invites her to come away with him. The one I love calls to me, arise, my dearest, hurry, my darling, come away with me. I come of you asked to draw you to my heart and lead you out, for now is the time, my beautiful one. So this invitation really is an invitation for her to lay down her life. That's what that invitation, that's how I read it when I was reading it this time. It's an invitation to come away with her lover and lay down her life at his feet. But she replies in verse 17, I will come away another time. But until the day springs to life and the shifting shadows of fear disappear, turn around, my lover, and ascend to the holy mountains of separation without me. Until the new day fully dawns, run on ahead like the graceful gazelle and skip like the young stag over the mountains of separation. Go on ahead to the mountain of spice. I'll come along another time. So we've read that she's starting to understand. She knows how loved she is, but there's still a fear of laying down her life. So she tells him to go on ahead. In chapter 3, after he's gone, she spends some nights in turmoil. So she gets up and she goes searching for him. Night after night, I'm tossing and turning on my bed of travail. Why did I let him go from me? How my heart aches for him, but he is nowhere to be found. So I must rise and search for him, looking throughout the city, seeking until I find him. Even if I have to roam through every street, nothing will keep me from my search. Where is he, my soul's true love? He is nowhere to be found. Then I encountered the overseers as they encircled the city, so I asked them, have you found him, my heart's true love? Just as I moved past them, I encountered him. I found the one I adore. I caught him and fastened him to myself, refusing to be feeble in my heart again. Now I will bring him back to the temple within, where I was given new birth, into my innermost parts, the place of my conceiving. We're really seeing there a picture or a shadow of being born again. She allows him in. She allows him in, like into her deepermost parts, into her heart, and that's where she's given you birth. And this is the change. She stops trying to push him away. She stops trying to convince him that she is unworthy and unlovable. She drops her defences and pushes aside her fear and lets him into her heart. Let's go have a quick drink. And that's the biggest change, I think, in her. After that, if you keep on reading, their relationship is really different. And that's what we need to do. Hey, we need to drop our defences. Stop being scared. I mean, it's if I, to be perfectly honest, the thought of giving up all control, when that power went out a few weeks ago and it was pitch black and we figured out that we really couldn't control anything, did my head in. And it was just without power. So the thought of giving over my whole life and let God take full control, to be honest, it's a struggle. It's hard. Skipping on to chapter 4, verse 6. I've made up my mind until the darkness disappears and the dawn has fully come, in spite of shadows and fears. I will go to the mountaintop with you, the mountain of suffering love and the hill of burning incense. Yes, I will be your bride. So it's not like she's not scared. She's just decided, I'm not going to live in fear. I'm going to go. That mountain of suffering love is really a picture of, or can be seen as a picture of Jesus being crucified up on the hill. So she's really saying, I'll go and be crucified with you, like Pete talks about all the time. I'm going to go and be co-crucified with you. I'm going to lay my life down for you. And I will become your bride. That, coincidentally, is the first place where the bride of Christ is actually mentioned in the Bible. So the Shulamite bride didn't have to change. You know, she didn't have to be different. She didn't have to work out her whatever it is. She didn't have to work out. You know, one of my favourite movies is The Blues Brothers, and there's a quote in there: "You got to get yourself right. You got to get to church." And I think we hear that a lot. You've got to get yourself right and go to church. Not like, how about just coming and meeting God, and then we'll just sort everything else out later. And that's what the Shulamite bride has decided. She's like, I don't need to get myself right. I don't need to go changing like the Billy Joel song. I just need to decide. I'm going to drop my defences. I'm going to drop my fears. And even though I know my fears are there, I'm not going to let them. Like she said, when she finds him, she goes, I will not be feeble of heart. We won't be feeble of heart. We need to not let fears control us. I'm actually talking to me. Imagine what it would be like if we truly believed in him the way he believes in us. Yeah, imagine, like, God sees us as completed works. Completed works. When he looks at us, he doesn't see all the stuff that we see. I'll rephrase that. He probably does see it. He doesn't really. He just sort of ignores it, I guess, because it's there. We know it's there. But when he sees us, he just sees his sons and daughters that he loves, that he crucified his son for. If we truly believed in God like that, and like I was saying, if we truly believed in ourselves like that, how different would life be? How different would life be? How different would the world be? We wouldn't be controlled by all these fears we see on the 7 News. We'd be like, whatever, God. What are you actually doing, God? Because these things don't scare me. What are you actually saying, God? So there's been two phrases going around in my head as I was preparing for this. And I really, really should have paid more attention to them sooner than I did. Because to be honest, I get quite anxious before I do this. I'm not too bad while I'm doing it, but before, in the preparation, I wake up like at 4 o'clock in the morning in cold sweats and feeling anxious and stuff like that. And all through these couple of weeks of feeling this sort of anxious, God's like, be still and know I am God. Yeah, thanks, God. Or as it says in the Passion Translation, surrender your anxiety, be still and realise that I am God. My favourite translation of that, though, is in the American Standard Bible, cease striving and know that I am God. Man, if we could stop ceasing to strive, I wouldn't need to have any anxiety. You know, when we do be still, we step into like God's peace. Hey, shalom. I'm just going to read to you, if I can read my own writing, the actual definition, what shalom actually means. That means so much more than peace. That means wholeness, wellness, well-being, safe, happy, friendly, favour, completeness, to make peace, a peace offering, secure, to prosper, to be victorious, to be content, tranquil, quiet and restful. So shalom is used to describe these of us who have been provided all that is needed to be whole and complete, and to break off all authority that would attempt to bind us to chaos. I'll just close the page, Ali. Okay, all of it? The whole thing? All right. That means so much more than peace. That means wholeness, wellness, well-being, safe, happy, friendly, favour, completeness, to make peace, a peace offering, secure, to prosper, to be victorious, to be content, tranquil, quiet and restful. So shalom is used to describe those of us, us, who have been provided all that is needed to be whole and complete, and to break off all authority that would attempt to bind us to chaos. See, we're whole and complete. That's how God sees us. We don't need to work on ourselves anymore. We don't need to listen to any more Tim Robbins self-help tapes. There's nothing wrong with you. We're all different. We're all unique. God speaks to me in song lyrics. He speaks to other people in pictures. But he communicates to us all. You know, with me, I know he's speaking because I feel him. Other people just sort of know. We're all different. We're all unique. There's nothing wrong with any of us. There's no right or wrong way. And when we step into this shalom peace of God, when we actually do be still and be quiet, chaos breaks off around us. So can I share that story, Ash, that you were talking? Because that was really cool. So Ash was saying just before, I'll paraphrase because I can't remember exactly what she said, but she was telling us that her mornings are crazy because she's got 3 kids. I had a couple of kids, now I've got a couple of adults. But I know, it gets crazy when you've got little kids in a school time and you're trying to get them ready and they don't want to put on their shoes and they don't want that for lunch. And I know, it gets crazy. But Ash was saying that in the morning she started practicing being still. She had a whole lot to do. She had a whole lot of bookwork to catch up on. And she said to God in this quietness, if you can bend time and space for me, that would be great. And then she got a text from her mum asking if she would like a hand doing all this bookwork. Problem solved. Chaos gone. It's in this quiet place that the chaos gets broken. Yeah, even for me, as I was preparing even in the anxiety, I knew on Saturday morning when I woke up and I sat down and I was quiet, that's when all these thoughts that were scattered through my head sort of came together. That's why I was saying I should have really paid more attention. The other phrase is a phrase that is written throughout the Psalms in the Passion Translation anyway. That's really the only translation I read these days. In a lot through the stanzas of Psalms, it says, pause in his presence. So I'll just give a quick example. I'll just read through a psalm that God gave to me actually in the Power Out. Psalm 3. Lord, I have so many enemies, so many who are against me. Listen to how they whisper their slander against me, saying, look, he's hopeless. Even God can't save him from this. Pause in his presence. So when I do that, I'm like, well, I'm actually not surrounded by a whole lot of enemies, but there's a big enemy in here. And this big enemy in here speaks a whole lot of slander against me. But in the depths of my heart, I truly know that you, Yahweh, have become my shield. You take me and surround me with yourself. Your glory covers me continually. You lift high my head. I've cried out to you, Yahweh, from your holy presence. You send me a father's help. Pause in his presence. How good is that? Doesn't matter what's going on in here. God, you love me. You surround me. You protect me. I don't have to live in fear. I can give you complete control, like the Shulamite bride. I can just push my fears aside. I can drop my defences. I can let you in because you're safe. So now I'll lay down asleep like a baby, and I'll awake in safety, for you surround me with your glory. Even though 10,000 dark powers prowl around me, I won't be afraid. Rise up and help me, Yahweh. Come and save me, God. For you will slap them in the face, breaking the power of their words to harm me. For the Lord alone is my Saviour. What a feast of favour and bliss he gives his people. Pause in his presence. I love that. And I don't do that anywhere near enough. I'm like, righto, God, there's a problem. Let's go solve it. Actually, you just wait there, God. I'll go solve it. Pause in his presence. Be still. Cast away your anxiety. Cease to strive. And know that I am God. That's the difference in the Shulamite bride. And that is the difference in us. If we could actually just pause in his presence. If we could actually just be still. Man. You are whole and you are complete. That's how God sees you. And that's how I choose to see you. Why would I want to see your brokenness when I can see you whole and complete? Why would God want to see our brokenness when he can see us whole and complete? We're actually not broken. The brokenness Pete was talking about is a different brokenness. It's really just being humble of spirit. It's not trying to point out all your faults. The more we look at our faults, that's the more we see and the less we see of God. So we're going to take some time now just to be still, just to pause in his presence. And I encourage you to do that as we worship. So many things happen in worship. I've told this story before, but I think I'll tell it again. I actually probably told it more than once, but I'll keep on saying it because to me it's a miracle. a few years ago now, can't remember exactly how long ago, I was at my mum's house and I couldn't sleep. It was a pretty hot night and I couldn't really get to sleep. And all of a sudden I felt like really, really hot. Started sweating, and it wasn't that hot. It was a warm summer's night, but it wasn't hot. And this heat just washed over me. My heart rate increased, and unbeknownst to me, I was having a panic attack. I was convinced that if I went to sleep, I would not wake up. That would be the enemy. I'd be dead. That's what was the thought that was going around in my head. And just this fear and this panic. It was terrible. But I pushed through that first night. Didn't really get much sleep, obviously. During the next day I was alright. That next night, same thing happens again. And I'm lying in bed. And if you ever had panic attacks or you ever dealt with anxiety, you know you start to shake. So I'm lying in bed shaking. Kay wakes up and she goes, "What's wrong?" And I just burst in tears. I'm like, "I don't know. I'm scared. I'm so scared." And Kay pulled out her earphones and put on some worship music. Put the worship on in my ears. And after a few minutes I fell asleep. The music stopped. I woke up in panic. Put the earphones back in. Press play again. And sleep. And that happened, that was for about 3 nights. So the third night, same thing again. Feeling panic, worship music, sleep. Music stops, panic, worship music, sleep. But I started to realise that even when I can't say the words, when I can't pray, the Holy Spirit, intercedes for us, as it says in here somewhere. I was reading it before, but I can't remember what it was. He groans with intercession for us. That's beyond words. Sometimes we get like that. Sometimes all we can do really, and I know it's in myself, sometimes all we can do is really groan because what's actually happening in here, we just can't get out of our mouth. And the Holy Spirit steps in and He intercedes for us. And that's what was happening for me, I believe. And it's like a miracle because you have no idea how scared I was. So when we worship, I very rarely sing the words. I just let God just wash over me. And I let God do His thing. Worship is like a two-way street. It's just not us saying words. It's C.S. Lewis said, it's in worship that God imparts Himself to us. Worship allows us to get out of ourselves. It allows us to get out of our heads. And we open up ourselves because you can't really worship from a closed. You can sing songs from a closed position, but you can't worship. Worship has arms wide open. And when we worship with our arms wide open, that's when God imparts Himself to us. So sometimes when we're going through stuff and we don't have the words, we just can worship, open up our hearts and let God impart Himself to us. Hilton gave the best description of worship I've ever heard. So I'm going to steal it. Hilton was talking about coming to the footstool. We see the footstool sometimes as, like we're sort of kneeling in a footstool and we're gazing up in God's and it's all lovey-dovey and nice. But what the footstool actually was the place where the defeated king rested his head, and the king who defeated him put his foot on top of the head. That's how we should be coming to God. We should be putting our heads on His footstool and say, "God, You've defeated me. You are the King of my life." And all this happens in worship. We open our arms, we bow our heads, we put our head on God's footstool, we declare Him as King. We be still and we know that He is God. We rest in His presence. It's so much more than just singing songs. Worship has the power to change your life. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to be still and know that He is God. We're going to cast away our fears. We're going to drop our defences. We're going to open our arms. We're going to put our head on His footstool. We're going to allow Him to be King, to be Lord of our life. We'll pause in His presence and we'll let God impart Himself to us. Also, sometimes it takes a change of posture and a change of position. So if you feel like you need to move, just feel free. There's plenty of space here. Just feel free to come out. Change your position, change your posture.